Amen. Here's what it says. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us. Let us fix our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith, who for the joy set before him endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. And I want to preach tonight for just a little while from this thought: it's too heavy to take with me. You may be seated in the very presence of the Lord our God. It's too heavy to take with me. Pastor Petaway and Walk the Word Church, it's intriguing to me how the space shuttle can leave this part or leave the country and go into outer space. It's amazing to me how all of the apparatus that goes into putting the space shuttle together that man makes, it leaves, Minister Jones, this ground and goes into space. And I watched it one particular time, and it launches into space with 2 rocket boosters attached to the side of the shuttle. And once it reaches a certain altitude, the rocket boosters fall off. Now, to most of us who may not know about space shuttleology, to the unlearned eye, Minister Gary, it looks like there's something that's malfunctioning. When you see that shuttle go up and those 2 boosters begin to fall off, you think something is immediately wrong. But what I found out as I watched the space shuttle land more than one time, that at a certain time that the shuttle gets to a certain level, it's perfectly normal in the flight process for those boosters to fall off. Y'all looking, but you're not listening. Rocket boosters are designed to fall off at a certain altitude. They were never designed to fly into orbit. They serve their purpose, Armel, in helping the shuttle get to a certain level, and then they fall off. Come on, rewind. They serve their purpose. They get to a certain level, and then they're not ever designed to go into orbit. Let me talk to this side. They can only go so far because their assignment is over. And I'm talking to some people in 2011, as you have gotten ready to go into space and orbit, don't be afraid to let those that have reached their level fall off. Can I preach like I feel it? I'm talking to some of you that caught hell all year long, and yet you know that your destiny is not to be where you've always been. You have reached a level where there's some relationships, there are some friendships, there's some people in your space that you need to say arrivederci, bye-bye to, because they have reached their rocket booster level. I dare you to high-five somebody and tell them, have you reached your level? Because, baby, I'm going into orbit. I'm going where I gotta go, and if you can't go where I'm trying to go, I got to let you go. Some people in your life for a reason and a season, and the problem that most of us have is we're trying to make some season and reason people lifetime people. And you wonder why you can't get off ground zero. Because you trying to take a buster into orbit, and they were never designed to go into orbit. Y'all ain't got to like it, but there's some of y'all know that you have more in your destiny that you're showing. You have more in your life than you are exhibiting, and you wonder why you can't seem to get where you're trying to go. Maybe you don't want to let your rocket booster fall off. Pastor, why I gotta let Ray go? Because Ray has only... Why I got to let Shaniqua go? Because she's reached her level. I'm an equal opportunity preacher, I promise you. I ain't mad at nobody, but you know in 2011, there were some places that you were supposed to go. There were some destinies and levels you were supposed to reach, and you can't blame it on somebody else the rest of your life. Determine and decree that in 2011, this was the last year that I played the excuse game. This is the last year I play the blame game, because I'm going to let whoever, whatever go. If it's got to go, it's got to go. Is there anybody here that is ready to go into your orbit? You're ready to get to your destiny? Well, you better tell whoever and whatever it is that's trying to ground you, bye-bye. Well, the text is tailored to teach us that you can't expect God to do what he's told you to do. I knew you'd get that way. In 2011, Pastor, we've carried some things, and I come to submit tonight that there are two things that we've got to say bye-bye to. One is unforgiveness. In my devotional today, in Colossians 3:13, it says, forgive whatever grievance you may have. Philip Yancey writes, he says that he describes forgiveness as an unnatural act and says you don't find dolphins forgiving sharks for eating their playmates. Y'all will catch that later on. He said it's a dog-eat-dog world, not a dog-forgive-dog world. Talks here, he says, grudges come naturally when you've been hurt, whereas forgiving requires God's enabling grace. Matthew 6:15 says, if you do not forgive, your Father will not forgive your sin. Now, can I just hang out here for about 30 seconds? You see, sometimes we think just because we got past it, that we have forgiven it. Here's a surefire way to know that you have not forgiven it. When you get mad, it so easily comes back up. I'm going to just preach to y'all then. They ain't going. Can I talk real talk here? Because you know, not you, but the people on your road, they know how to pull up that bomb, that word bomb. When you get on that last nerve, they know just how to blow your life up. They know just what to say because they've been waiting for weeks and months and years to say it. And when you get them mad enough, they gonna tell you how they really feel. I'm saying this for free. It won't cost you nothing. Learn to trust what folks say when they get real mad. Can I talk to about 15 of y'all that'll be honest and say that you know when you got so-and-so real mad, some stuff came up that you thought that they had forgiven you for, and it may have been 5 to 10 to 15 years ago, and they still keeping score. You got to let unforgiveness go. He says, by forgiving, you change the whole dynamic. You open the door of a prison where you are both prisoner and jailer. Don't you know how much power you have when you learn how to forgive? Now, listen, since you're taking this real cool, don't say you forgave and really in your heart you know you have not. Because see, what happens is you may fool the person you say you forgiven, but God doesn't look and listen to just what we say or look like. He looks at the heart. Y'all ain't got to talk back to me. I'm going to say it in just, we're going to get there in about 8 minutes. But understand that you cannot really pray right with unforgiveness in your heart. Well, let me just ask you this. Have you really been praying or playing in 2011? Oh, no, you can't come in. I know, we know how to do that church thing. I was talking to my pastor today. Pastor, we were talking about how churches are either one or another. They are either church-oriented or they are mission-oriented. And a whole lot of times we know how to do church. But church, when sure enough you need God, church won't get it. It's not enough to know how to lift my hands. It's not enough to know how to do my dance. And some of you who speak in tongues, it's not enough just to have a tongue that we can't understand if you can't speak to me in English. That's where you want me. I'm going there. But understand that if you can't speak to me in language that I understand, grudges not only isolate you from people who were once friends, they actually shorten your life by producing deadly enzymes that contribute to a host of physical ailments. You wonder why your blood pressure is high? Give me 8 minutes. You wonder why you got some stuff in 2011 you didn't have in 2010? It ain't because you ate pork and beef. It ain't because you had that extra piece of sweet potato pie. But a whole lot of times, Sonia, it's because there's some stuff that God told you to let go. So-and-so made you mad in 1985 and you still got a record of it. But let me throw this at you for free. Brother Holmes, it's amazing how we forgive who we want to forgive. And we hold on to stuff against somebody that we should have let go, and yet we forgive the joker that was never no good. I'm not preaching good enough. But understand, not only does forgiveness cause you to have physical ailments, there's something else that we've got to learn to let go because it's too heavy for me to carry. Not only is it unforgiveness, but it's bitterness. When you look at Hebrews chapter 12, verse 15, look at what it says. It says, see to it that no one misses the grace of God, and that no bitter root grows up to cause trouble and defile many. Now understand this. See, there's a whole lot of things that instead of us becoming better over, we got bitter over. Now I don't know about you, but I just believe that the grace of God is more important than me holding on to bitterness about what anybody else has done to me. Because when you think about how good God has really shown enough been to you, ain't no need of you being mad at somebody who has gone on. They ain't thinking about you. And here you are carrying stuff that God has given you grace to get over. Tell your neighbor, let it go, let it go. It's too heavy for you to carry into 2012. We too close, boo. We too close right now to get into another dimension, a new dynamic, for you to carry some stuff that God told you to let go. I have been ordained and authorized to sit next to you. Y'all ain't talking. You still supposed to be still talking to them and tell them I have been ordained to sit next to you and tell you if you want to go into your orbit, you got to let some things go. Can I talk about church hurt for about 30 seconds? I don't care who hurt you in church. It shouldn't have made you more bitter. It should have made you better. Because didn't you know it was ordained to help you get closer to God than you ever were? Instead of you cussing them out, you ought to say, God, in the name of Jesus. Instead of you having a fit and falling out, I dare you to fall on your face and say, Father, I stretch my hand to thee. No other help I know. If thou withdraw thyself from me, tell me whither shall I go? Well, I got three things here, and I'm going to raise up out of here. You got to understand that there's some things that are too heavy for us to carry. And when you understand the text here, Paul helps us to understand. He says, therefore. Let the church say, therefore. You see, Deacon Jones, you know we don't talk about therefore without recognizing what the therefore is there for. And so therefore means that the conversation is not beginning in chapter 12. So you got to rewind and go back to chapter 11 to find out what the therefore in chapter 12 verse 1 is there for. So when you look at the therefore in chapter 12, you got to go back and look at the chapter 11. And that chapter 11 is the hall of fame of faith. Don't go to sleep, y'all. Understand the fact that Paul helps them to understand that by faith, there were those that received the promise. He gives the hall of fame of faith. He says, by faith, Enoch walked with God, was taken from this life so that he did not experience death. He says, by faith, Abel offered God a better sacrifice than Cain did. He goes on to talk in verse 7 of chapter 11. He says, by faith, Noah, when warned about things not yet seen, in holy fear, built an ark to save his family. By his faith, he condemned the world and became heir of the righteousness that comes by faith. In verse 8, he says, by faith, Abraham, when called to go out to a place he would later receive as his inheritance. Verse 9, by faith. Verse 11, by faith. The rest of the verses, verse 17, by faith. By faith. Verse 20, Isaac blessed Jacob and Esau in regard. Verse 21, by faith, Jacob. Verse 22, by faith, Joseph. Verse 23, by faith, Moses. Verse 24, by faith. Y'all ain't got it yet. It's by faith that you're going to make it into your next dimension. But wait, he keeps talking. And he says there were those that died in faith without having received the promise. He said there were those that died in faith that did receive the promise. And as we come closer to 2012, you got to understand that how you're going to make it in through 2012, it's only going to be by faith. Ask your neighbor, do you have it? I'm about to raise up. But understand, your faith can be hindered when you carry too much weight. Look at what he says. He says in verse 1, chapter 12, he says, therefore, since we're surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, I believe, beloved, that in 2012, we ought to determine that we're not going to make those that have gone on before us, we're not going to let them down. What are you saying, Pastor? Notice it says, we're surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses. You see, there are those that have gone on. See, I don't know nothing about Enoch. I don't know about Abram. I don't know about Moses and all of them, but I got some people that have gone on before. And Mr. Galloway, I don't really want to let them down. Because I know from the bandstand, the grandstand in glory, they're looking over saying, come on, TJ. Come on, Pastor. Come on, Rev. Don't mess it up. We got a spot right here. I don't know who I'm talking to tonight, but you got to understand that you don't have the luxury of running just any old kind of way. He says here, he says, we don't want to make those who've gone on, Sister Sharice, we don't want to let them down, but he says something else. He says, let us throw off everything. See, the problem comes when we want to throw off something. Sometimes God will allow you to get to a point where you ought to get tired of stuff. He says here, and I'm out. He says, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin. That's a conjunction there. He says, that's a connector. He says, and the sin. So just because it's a weight, that doesn't mean that the weight is sin. But every sin is a weight. Well, see, you waiting on it to fall off. But there are some things that you can't let fall off. You got to throw off. Because there are some things that if you don't throw it off, it's going to take you out. And I've caught enough hell in 2011. I don't need anything holding me down in 2012. Because understand here, he says, lay aside every sin and wait. Because with perseverance, we got to run the race marked out for us. I'm out of here now. But he says, not only should we lay aside some stuff, but he says, let us run the race. Paul here uses this language to help us to understand that in this race, he applies the word to the evangelical contest against the enemies of man's salvation. What he said, don't go to sleep. He says that you got to remember that there's some things that are coming against you when you run this race. See, long as you were doing your thing, long as you were shaking it fast, backing that thing up, dropping it like it's hot, you didn't have as many hindrances in your way as you have now. But because you're running the race that God has set before you, you got to learn how to run right. Because when you run this race the way God wants you to run, I told you I'm out now. He says that there will be some things that will get in your way. Why don't you grab a neighbor and tell your neighbor, be not dismayed, whatever betide, God will take care of you. Is there anybody here that knows he will? Come on and let's have a good time tonight. That knows he will take care of you. In 2011, he kept you when you didn't deserve to be kept. I dare you to high five two good people and tell them he talking about me now, because I know that my Redeemer lives, and because I'm going into another orbit, I got to let some things go. I got to let some people go, and I don't care if it means that I got to let some family go. They got to get out of my way, because I'm on my way to another place. But I need to tell you as I close tonight that there will be people people that are not trying to lift you up, but there will be people that are trying to pull you down. But I need to tell you, you got to have a little goat sense. I said it. I said goat sense. Tell your neighbor, do you have goat sense? I don't know what he's talking about yet, but I'm gonna hold on and he gonna re-explain it. Well, here it is. A goat fell in a ditch, and the man that owned the goat couldn't get it out. He tried and he tried to get the goat out of the ditch, but he just couldn't do it. So he decided to bury the goat. He said, I need to say bye to my goat. My goat has been a good goat, but I can't get my goat out the ditch, so I got to say good night to the goat. Y'all know where I'm going. So he tries to bury the goat. He gets some hay, he gets some straw, he gets some dirt, and starts throwing it on top of the goat. And know what happens? The goat got sense enough to know that I ain't ready to die yet. Is there anybody here that ain't ready to die yet? Slap 3 people and tell them it ain't time to die, but it's time to live. You shall live and not die. We're almost there. We got about 12 minutes, and I decree and determine that I'm not gonna die before my time. In 2011, folk have tried to put dirt on you, but I know, because I'm looking at you. High five somebody and tell them what they thought was gonna take me out. I learned how to shake it off. Shake it off. Shake it off. Is there anybody here that ain't ready to die? I got to finish my story. So what the goat did, when he threw the dirt on his back, he shook it off and trampled it under his feet. And you know what happens. He kept on shaking, kept on trampling, and after a while the ledge got a little closer, and what happened was he shook it off, kept on trampling, and after a while he was able to walk it out. Is there anybody here that's ready to walk it out? Grab somebody and tell them you ain't gonna die, because I came to help you tonight. Walk it out. Sickness, walk it out. Depression, walk it out. Divorce, walk it out. Why? Yes! Is there anybody here that's ready to come up out of your hole? Open your mouth and decree, I'm coming out. I'm coming out. Open your mouth. Open your mouth. I'm coming out. I'm not gonna die before my time. I'm gonna lay aside every weight that so easily beset me. Take your neighbor by the hand if you will.